What's going on, everybody? My name is Spencer Ostrowski, and this is the Delivering Sports Show. Before I get started, just go over a couple things. If you guys are interested in some kind of nerdy stuff, I have another channel called Argy Culture. I do movie reviews, I play video games, everything in between. So if you guys are interested in that, I'll leave a description and the link down below. And one other thing, I will have a few extra tickets actually for the next game. So if anyone's interested, I will be holding a competition for that. Just you can leave me an email at deliveringsports@gmail.com, and I'll probably do a random drawing depending on how many people I get. That way, it's a little fair for everyone, and we can go from there. I'm probably making a video announcing who won the tickets, and I'll leave a little bit of a comment down below about how I'm going to run it just from the email, just a random drawing and how I'll announce and everything like that. Must be subscribed and all that, so I'll leave a detailed thing down below. Anyways, we'll get right into the game. I'll go over some of my game notes. First thing is first, this game is, again, a big Kelsey Plum game. Not enough can be said about what she's done the past few games. There is no game today unless Kelsey Plum has that big second quarter, which leads into the rest of the game, really. I mean, we were down big, 14 points at one point. Her threes in the second quarter, I believe it was three, if I'm not mistaken, made it a game. So it was truly incredible to see. She's unbelievable player. I mean, there's no doubting it. And the way she's blossomed, not just offensively as well, but defensively, it's great to watch, live. It truly is. So it's been really fun. It's the biggest difference maker for this team, especially today, down 14. She had an incredible game. She's playing completely different from the way she has in any part of any season over the last two seasons. Since they've been at Las Vegas Aces, the last two games have been her two biggest games in this uniform, and I'm proud of her. She's been playing really well, and she's now leading this team. She is the leader of this team. Even though our best player is Les Cambé, she is the actual leader of this team, and she's developing into it. And this is something that team needs, who is developing a team culture. So really great to see. I'll go into some of my other stuff. Jackie Young had a bad game. Like, there's no going around it. She was aggressive, but she forced it. I know it's not on me. She doesn't listen to these videos, I would assume, or if she did, she wouldn't just take my advice, as it is. I always say over and over again that she needs to stay aggressive because this team is best when she's aggressive. She was aggressive today without a doubt, but she forced it. She was going into fast breaks and really going into the line, like trying to get free throws, but it just wasn't good positioning. It was a lot of that. I mean, I think that was most of her shots was just driving into the lane, and she's young, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to bring into all of this. She's a rookie. It is easy to forget in the heat of the game, and it is frustrating to watch. This whole game will be a learning experience for her. This is a game that Bill Laimbeer has to really sit her down and say, look, we're proud of you for the idea of being aggressive, but again, you were overly aggressive today. You forced too many shots instead of kind of going within the flow of the offense. So that was something I noticed, and she didn't really play much in the second half. Hamby took most of her play time, and I'll get into that later, but I just want to talk specifically about Jackie Young for that part. The first half, the Aces were doing that thing again where they do this half fast break thing, and they give themselves turnovers. It was a really bad problem. Got away from it in the second half. I was really proud of Bill Laimbeer today for his adjustments going into halftime because he was lucky. It was the team, not just him. The team was lucky to be down, I believe, 6 at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been 14 or 15 points if it hadn't been for Kelsey Plum. So he made a lot of really good adjustments. One of the adjustments was they were doing again the double team in the post. They were doing that, and I'm glad they got away from it in the second half because it was a big difference maker. They were making a ton of three-point shots. In the second half, they were still making three-point shots, but not as efficiently because they weren't double teaming in the post, leaving people wide open. They were chasing people at the three-point line in the second half. Ended up giving up a few tough threes, but something you can live with a little more than if they were wide open. So that was a big difference from the first and the second half, which obviously was huge. The Aces won each quarter after the second, but it was more noticeable in the third and fourth quarter, if that makes sense. Let's see. Out of bound plays are a problem for this team. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. They're just not good. they essentially just get the ball in, kind of. It looks forced, and then they go into the regular offense rather than having a set play from the start. Like once they get the ball, then the play is set. That's kind of the status quo now. Or, has always been not really the status quo for modern NBA. I mean, you need a play out of bounds because it's supposed to be your good spot where it's oddly specific of a side out of bounds, but something they need to work on, something they need to get new, because I've noticed in the entire season, out of bound plays from the sideline on our side of the court are just not good enough. It may seem small, but small details make a difference, especially in a game like this that is really close. I mean, you never know how the ball falls. So if you can get an easy bucket off an out of bounds play from a timeout or a foul, whatever, it can make a big difference. I'm glad they got away from the second half. Tamara Young has done this thing in the past 2 games. It was at the end of the Liberty game, so it's understandable. But she does this thing where she plays point guard, and I love Tamara Young. I think she's great defensively, but there will be times where she takes the ball and acts as though she's a point guard, and she'll force some shots. I call her the J.R. Smith of the WNBA. It's just funny, but it's not good, and she didn't do it in the second half. She didn't play a lot of minutes either, which was great. And another big second half adjustment is that starters played big minutes in the second half, and they have to because games are shorter. But anyways, Tamara Young when she plays point guard, it's not her role. It's not what she needs to do. So I'm glad they got away from it in the second half. It's not good, and they need to stay away from it because it's a dangerous place to get in. Turnovers, bad shots, it kind of leads to all that. So glad they got away from that. The next level for this team to me is, as much as all the other things I talk about, this is a new thing I'm trying to bring in. Hamby, I'm glad she takes the top of the key 3-point shot. She needs to practice it more. I don't think she's hit one this season, if I'm not mistaken. Quote me if I'm wrong, obviously, but at the very least, if she's hit one, it's not proficient. It's a great idea, and it is the next level to unlocking and just the most unguardable defense. If you want to go there, if she hits that, there is no stopping it. She can get that essentially whenever she wants when she's on the floor with A'ja Wilson and Liz Cambage, because people are really not guarding her at that point. And I really like that she tries it. She needs to practice it more, and I think she can improve within the season because she is close. Her shot isn't bad. She doesn't have a weird shot like Joakim Noah or something like that. So if that's something that she can hit, like maybe when she goes into practice before the actual practice starts, she can hit 50 of those. I think it will make a big difference for this team, and I hope she does, because other than that, she's obviously a really good player. She contributes. She could win 6 Man of the Year easily, and I hope she does. But yeah, that's something I've noticed, and she has to keep doing it. First of all, she can't, even if she's not making it, she has to keep doing it to make the defense think that she can. Because small things like that, 2 steps closer to the 3-point line versus digging in, it can make all the difference in the world for players like A'ja Wilson and Liz Cambage. So another thing that I noticed, they did a bad job of giving the ball to Liz Cambage in this game. They did it pretty well at the very end of the fourth quarter. They just need to get it to her because they have shooters surrounding her. She was getting really packed in the paint, and that's what every team's going to do, So they have to look at the game tape today because they haven't really faced that much opposition because she didn't play much in the beginning, and then the Liberty obviously just aren't up to par for what Liz Cambage can do. They're just not there yet. They have 2 young players outside of Zowie B, and they're second overall pick, and then A'ja, they just weren't ready for Liz. They don't have the type of player to cover her. But when you play the better teams, the game plan will always be to guard Liz Cambage as tight as possible because she is the best player on our team. In any case, they didn't do a very good job getting the ball because she is dominant once she gets it in her hands, but they need to give it to her in better scoring positions. They didn't do a very good job of that today. So another thing to look at in the game tape and kind of adjust around for the next game. A'ja Wilson was big in this game. She hasn't had a huge scoring night so far, which is almost impossible when you have as many players as you do who can score the basketball, especially with Kayla and Plum, who are looking to get their shots. So, but her defense in the third quarter was the difference maker in this game. Again, there is no game in the second quarter without Plum, and there is no game without A'ja in the third with her defense. Huge. There was no need to double. That's when they started to get away from the double team in the post. A'ja was by herself, huge blocks, huge rebounds, and she had of course she had big buckets as well, but it was her defense specifically with rebounding and blocks that made this game possible. So she has to be commended for that. It has to be recognized. And I hope she realized that herself, because it may be frustrating for her, because she averaged like 20 points scoring in her rookie season, and now it's closer to 10, if not 10 or 12. I'm not exactly sure. So, I mean, she is growing up like in front of our eyes, because I'm sure she wants to score 20 points a game, but now that she's not, she's realizing, okay, if I'm not going to score 20 points, I can still average 3 blocks a game and make that difference for this team. And today she could physically see it on the scoreboard. So that was really, really great to watch. So normally I would love to have Jackie Young in the lineup for the end of the game, but they had Hamby because Jackie Young just, Bill was usually known for pulling players out for mistakes quickly, and Jackie she was having a bad game all around, like just from the start. So the fact that Hamby was in at the end of the game was a good adjustment. And the big thing I noticed is that you could have fluid switch on everything. I love that kind of defense, and it's going to eventually be what the WNBA is, because the NBA is already there. That's what it is. That's what most modern NBA offenses do, at least the top teams. So the fact that when Hamby's in, you can do that. You do lose some offense because Jackie Young can hit the three-point shot a lot better than Hamby, but at the end of the day, when you need a lockdown defensively, having Hamby in with Asia and Liz, you can switch on everything, because obviously Asia can go out on the 3-point line, because she's big, but she's not that big. She has quick feet. She's skinnier than she was last season even. So you can have fluid switching, because Hamby can handle the post as well to an extent. At least you can play physical and make the shots tough. So that was another big difference maker in the fourth quarter, and it completely changed the game, and made this 5-point win possible. So yeah, those were my big game notes. This was a huge game for the Aces, obviously. Coming back down from 14-point deficit, it was a complete team effort, and that's the difference. I'm extremely proud of this team for what they did. They came out in the second half a completely different team from what they did in the first one. They did not look up to the task in the first half, and I think everyone can agree with that. They didn't look like a team who was aspiring for a championship. They sat down. Who knows what Bill said? I got to give him props for everything he did in the second half. I'm sure he talked to them, and they did everything right. Just kept their head up. Plum led this team as she has in the last 2 games. Just a huge presence. And then Liz Cambage finished off the game, which in your mind, as a fan, as a coach, as an analyst, it's exactly what you want, right? Liz isn't having a big game, but at the end of the day, when it comes down to the last 2 minutes, that's who you want the ball in her hand, and she had some big free throws. She went 6 of 6 on the free throw line, as you can see, and that was it. Once Liz started getting the ball in the last 2:30, I would say, in the game, you felt comfortable, and she delivered, and that's why you trade for a player like that. So, truly great win. Finally hitting into the 4-3 column. Building something. The last 2 games, the Aces have been building something. You don't want to see them come off to such a slow start, but again, a big statement win for this team, especially with the team below them in the Western Conference standing, who are looking to, leap above this team. And now the Aces have this big home push. I believe 4 of the next 7 games are at home. So we'll see what they can do with it. And that's essentially what you go from there. So thanks for listening, guys. Let me know everything you thought about the game. And don't forget to email me if you guys are interested in the tickets. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait for more basketball.